Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to talk about something we all do, but almost never think about turning up the heat. It seems so simple, right? But behind that little dial on the wall, there's a whole hidden world of technology, money, and yeah, a surprising amount of family drama.
I mean, come on. Does this sound familiar? It's a line you hear in houses all over the world, and it just perfectly captures the tension we're digging into today. This isn't just some funny quote. It's basically the first shot fired in a battle that happens every single winter. And that brings us right to our first section, the Great Thermostat Debate. This is where it all begins, right? That fundamental tug of war between wanting to be cozy and comfortable and the cold, hard reality of what it's going to cost. You know the scene. It's always the same. One person is bundled up in 3 layers of blankets saying, "It is freezing in here," while someone else is standing guard over the thermostat, thinking about that heating bill just climbing higher and higher. It's the ultimate showdown, feelings versus finances. Okay, so to really get to the bottom of this whole debate, we first need to make sure we're all speaking the same language. So let's take a quick minute to decode the language of heat. First up, the star of our show, the thermostat. It's so much more than just a little box on the wall. Think of it as the command center, the place where that whole battle between comfort and cost actually plays out. It takes how you're feeling and turns it into an order for the entire heating system. So, what is that thermostat actually bossing around? Well, in most modern homes, it's the central heating. And here's the really important part. One single unit heats the entire house. Now, that's great for warming everything up at once, but it's also why turning up the heat just for one chilly person can feel like such a huge waste to somebody else. Even the words we use get to the heart of the problem. Temperature is totally subjective. What one person calls a bit chilly, sweater weather, is when another person calls absolutely freezing. That personal difference is what fuels the entire debate. Of course, we have to remember central heating is pretty new in the grand scheme of things. For centuries, most homes just had a furnace or a fireplace. The heat was in one spot, which meant everyone had to gather together to stay warm. That's a totally different vibe than the kind of personal, on-demand comfort we expect today. So that brings us to a bigger look at the tech itself. Let's explore the different ways people all over the world actually keep their homes warm. Okay, so this table lays out the main options pretty clearly. You've got your whole house systems like central heating with a boiler and radiators or gas heating with a furnace. Then you've got your more targeted stuff like a plug-in electric heater. And of course, there's the oldest method of all, just burning wood or coal. Every single one has its own pros and cons when you think about convenience, cost, and of course, safety. All right, so we've talked a lot about the heating bill for your house, but now it's time to zoom out, way out. Let's think about our planet's heating bill. The much, much bigger consequences of all this energy we're using just to stay warm. And this really forces us to ask a tough question. The number you see on your monthly bill, that's one thing. But there's a much bigger cost out there, one that's measured in the health of our entire planet. So what is the real cost of staying warm? The reality is most of our heat comes from burning non-renewable fuels, things like gas, oil, and coal. Not only are these resources going to run out someday, but they're also the main things driving climate change. This is totally different from cleaner, more sustainable options like solar or wind power. So, the takeaway here is pretty straightforward. How we heat our homes has a direct, massive impact on the environment. It's a huge chunk of all the energy we use at home. Burning gas releases invisible carbon dioxide that warms the planet, and burning wood or coal can create visible smoke that pollutes the air right in our own neighborhoods. Now, that all might sound a little scary, but it actually leads us to a much more hopeful conversation. So let's move on and look at how we might build a future that is both warmer and a whole lot wiser. When you boil it all down, the challenge ahead is actually pretty simple. We need to figure out how to keep that feeling of comfort and security in our homes, but do it while using way, way less energy. It's all about being more efficient and more innovative. So how do we actually pull that off? Well, it starts with the most basic idea. Stop wasting the heat you've already paid for. That means better insulation. Then we can get smarter about when we use heat by using programmable systems. After that, we can change where our energy comes from by switching to renewables. And hey, never forget the power of small habits. The cheapest, cleanest energy is always the energy you never had to use in the first place. But while we're talking about all these smart solutions, we have to remember that this is also about people.
For millions around the world, the problem isn't using a little less energy, it's about being able to afford enough to stay safe and warm at all. That's called fuel poverty, and it's a powerful reminder that just being able to stay warm is a basic issue of fairness.
And so we end up right back where we started, standing in front of the thermostat. But now we can see it's so much more than just a dial on a wall, isn't it? It really represents a choice. It's the balance point between our own personal comfort and our collective responsibility for the future we all share. So the real question is, where do we, as individuals and as a society, decide to set that dial?